that to you real quick.
Thank you.
All right.
Ashley mentioned everyone introducing themselves from the IHCDA team, so we can do that while she
that would be
sends me
fantastic.
that email. So, hi, I'm Emily Krauser. I think I've met some of you on the EAP calls before. I am the Chief Deputy Director of Programs at IHCDA. And then we also have Tom. And
hi,
Liz.
everyone.
You all know Tom. Who else do we have from the IHCDA team on?
Did Liz at least say her what she does, a position at the very least?
Good morning, everybody. It's Liz. I'm the customer service specialist, so I help out with making sure that callers and folks who send emails get directed to their county's program provider. And I'm also here to support all of you with lots of different questions. So glad to be here this morning.
I think we had Sam on, Tom.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm trying to look at the participant list.
I know.
I am. Good morning. Yes, hi, good morning. This is Sam. I am the community programs analyst for energy assistance.
David?
All right, and then we got a message from Roxanne in the chat. Roxanne, who works on the claims. So she's here. And then, sorry, go ahead, David.
No, I was just going to say I'm here as a guest like everyone else. I'm not going to be giving out any kind of advice, I don't think. So, but I'm happy to be here and get a better understanding of the program.
And David just finished my feedback on the MOA for the vendors, so which will be part of our discussion tomorrow. So we have that to look forward going out in the next week. Anyone else?
I think we're good.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay. Right. All right, so let's see, it's been about 3 weeks since your training with Tom for EAP. Is that about right, Tom? 2 weeks?
Yeah, we'll go with that.
So hopefully you still have some of that fresh in your brain, because a lot of this water program, as some of you may or may not know, has been really built on the back of the EAP program. When the federal guidance came out, they really wanted and guided the states to try to do it off of processes that you had already had established in your states. And Emily can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think that that's mostly because at this point it's a 3-year grant, so, or 3-year funding, 3-year program. So you know, and not too long of a timeline and a short turnaround to get the state plan submitted and to get your program up and running. So you kind of needed something to base it off of. And so for Indiana, especially, Tom's program in EAP was, and is very successful. And so I've been working very closely with Tom and of course Emily to build this program. And obviously this first year is going to be not a trial run, I don't want to call it that, but we're going to learn from it. We're going to adjust as needed after this first year. But yeah, really, the purpose of this training is to build on that EAP knowledge, because that's what you are experts in and that is what you have known already. So, continue to build on that, continue to build on that training that Tom has already so outstandingly done as I attended. along with the program year 2022 information that he has already distributed with the manual that he created. And we'll talk about the water manual as well. So don't worry there, that is coming. As well as, provide comprehensive information about the unique aspects of the LIHWAP or water program. I'll probably switch to mostly calling it water just because during this webinar and, in conversation, just because it's easier, less confusion, because again, one letter changes it from LIHEAP to LIHWAP. So just saying water makes it a little easier. So, a base of our conversation to begin is going to be what are those key differences between water and EAP and, your main tasks and differences that you're going to see on your end. And of course, and most importantly for me at this moment in time is to gather your feedback to utilize for the finalization of the manual. And I have more comments on that, so I'll kind of save those for a future conversation. But you are the experts when it comes to EAP, and therefore, and in the field of water utilities and wastewater utilities. So anything that is coming from this webinar that you're learning from me, I need to have your input on the other side so that I can get any of those final policies put into place and into the manual. So there's several reasons why that didn't go out before this. And I think as we discuss those steps, you'll understand why. And I think that you'll see it's to your benefit. So yeah, speaking of the water manual, we are not finally, but we are state approved. Our state plan has been approved by the Office of Community Services. We did get that final approval. So I am finishing the last draft of the manual and in that process now. It just didn't make sense to mark any type of manual as final draft until we got that approval and we were able to correct all the feedback that they provided to us. There wasn't a lot of feedback. We did a great job. Emily started that process before I hired on, and Tom, and got that state plan, that first draft out. And so there wasn't a lot of corrections or things to be made, but the ones that were pretty large things that needed to be addressed. And I think they were brought up and to you in the training with Tom. We just kind of briefly mentioned them during that. So we'll also talk about them in this training because that's something new that if you have been through any of the training, or not necessarily trainings, but any of the presentations that Emily or I have had on the water program thus far, there are some major trainings or major changes, specifically when it comes to how we handle utilities that are paid in rent, or utilities that are that the landlord takes care of in their rent. So we will talk about that in depth as well. So I think we'll just we'll get everyone muted again. Got that, Emily? And then I'll unmute. All right, there we go. So that's one of the main reasons why the manual is not at its final stage yet. But even more so, the feedback that we're going to receive from you during these two sessions today and tomorrow are going to be instrumental. So I thank you for that in advance, in providing me some, and it may or may not go into the manual, but hopefully there are going to be things that come from this that I am able to implement in the policy and planning stages of that manual that will have implications further down the line that would prevent any issues from occurring as we move through the program. And also, I think I mean, in my personal opinion, your time is very valuable. And anytime we make large changes to the manual, we have to retrain you. So I would rather have the manual in its final state than have to call you all back to retrain you on the manual for making changes in a month or two down the line. And last, as you prepare to launch the program for the agency, because, you know, as we move towards October 1, use these slides as the manual. It will have plenty of detail. You will get the copies of both today and tomorrow's slides, or any email questions that you send to me after. You know, you can utilize those as your guidance as well. And the manual will be emailed no later than October 8th. So we appreciate your patience. Any questions on that? Because I want to give you opportunity, because I know that that's it's your kind of what you live and die by with your programs. Okay. All right. And of course, if we need to have another session, if there's a lot of questions once it comes out, Emily, is that something we would need to do no matter what? Or
I say we'll do it if we need, or if there are any major changes or updates that are made in the manual from this presentation.
okay. All right. All right, so our water team. I am happy to announce that we have started the hiring process with another Emily. So hopefully it's a good name, but it's going to be a little confusing for a little while. So, but her name is Emily Scott, and she will be my analyst. I'm assuming well, I guess it depends on if there's another E. Scott here. I don't know, but it'll probably be something like E. Scott and then our domain. And her start date at this point is September 29th, which is a Wednesday. So it's kind of an odd, but I started on a Wednesday too, so no biggie there. But at this point, as long as everything goes smoothly, the process was initiated today. So I'm very excited to bring her on. I'm also in the process of hiring a monitor. I just kind of put it on hold as I wrapped up the preparation for today and tomorrow's training. So hopefully, I know we still have a pretty good pool of candidates for that. I'm not sure if that position is still posted, but if it's not, or if it is, and you have someone that you think would be a good candidate for that, please send them my way. The person on the monitor side, you know, someone that's good at working independently and would be, you know, working with more of the rules, regulations, making sure that all the guidance and federal policies and things like that are followed. And good writing skills, those types of things. Emily, did you want to add something?
Oh, just it's not still posted, but definitely shoot Ashley an email if there's somebody that you think would be amazing. Yeah,
because there was the pool for that one wasn't as large as the analyst position. So, and sorry. Okay, I was just checking the chat because I wanted to make sure there wasn't something I was missing. Okay. And as I previously mentioned, the water email address is up and running. So please use this for communications. I will be checking it. My analyst, when she gets here, and our monitor, when they get here, they will be checking it. So that way, if anyone is out of the office, there's no chance that an email is going to get missed. If it is something that needs escalated, obviously that's fine. You can email me directly, or if it's something you know that it's a communication that needs to go directly to myself or the analyst, once we know what their specific job duties are, and you know that it's something that needs to go to someone specific, that's fine. But this way we can keep track of everything, and nothing gets lost. Especially, I'm not going anywhere anytime soon, or anytime for that matter. But, if just like for you all, if you have turnover in your agency, that can cause some issues. So using a departmental email address can be very beneficial for things like that. So please use that for communications when possible. And one thing we wanted to add to this presentation is just how much we appreciate you all, because we don't think you probably hear it enough. And so on behalf of not only our water program and Tom's EAP program, but just all of our staff here in the community programs division and everyone at IHCDA, we just thank you for your commitment to continue to serving the underserved and most vulnerable members of our communities, and especially during this unprecedented time during COVID, when people are so scared and going through some of the most difficult times of their lives. Just thank you so much for continuing to help the Hoosiers in our state. So we especially, taking on this additional programmatic work, more than likely you probably weren't able to hire on someone just to take on this extra water program. If you were, that's fantastic, but most of you are probably doing this along with your EAP responsibilities. So that's very much appreciated. And so we just, again, want to thank you and want to show that we're here for you and we support you. So any way that we can help you, just let us know. And we're here for you if you need anything. All right. So now we'll get into I say the nitty gritty, but we kind of saved the nitty gritty as the title for tomorrow because that's the real nitty gritty. But we'll get into the kind of the overview of the water program. But before I do that, is there any questions thus far? I mean, we haven't really gotten into anything yet, but just any base questions that anyone has? No? Okay. And feel free to use that hand raise option if you want. It's at the top. It's like the third icon in from the left. And that'll allow us to see that you have a question. Okay, so as you likely already know, oh, sorry, hang on. Did a question just come through? Maybe.
Ashley, would it be helpful if I monitored for questions and
because
interrupted you if one comes up?
Yeah, I get distracted.
Got you.
Because I worry like, oh, what if I miss a question? So yes, that would be great because I
I'll
don't.
handle it for you.
Thank you. Okay. So as we know, the funding is very similar to EAP and the LIHWAP program. So the negative impact of COVID and what it's done to our economy and what it's done to our communities. The water program funding was created to provide income eligible households with that opportunity to help pay their water or wastewater bills. The good part about it is that, a lot of, just like, EAP, same thing, that, you know, we're not having to show this hardship, that proof of hardship is not required. You know, there's other grants out there and other programs not related to IHCDA necessarily that do require that. So that's a really good part about this. With our utility program for the water, they don't have to show that proof that they've been negatively impacted. But obviously there's all of the other steps, just like they have with EAP of the income, eligibility verification, all the extra, you know, all of those types of steps that they have to take that we'll get into. But that actual proof of a pandemic related hardship does not need to be completed. But it still was a reactive step to the pandemic. The program is funded by two federal bills or two federal funding sources. The 2021 appropriations bill, we received $12,965,755. And from ARPA, or the American Rescue Plan Act, $10,161,250. Tom covered especially ARPA really in depth in his trainings, so I am not covering those in detail. But if you do have questions, please feel free to either, you know, email me, or, you know, we can have a conversation offline about it. I'm happy to assist with any questions you have, but we didn't want to duplicate too much information and spend more time than we needed to addressing things that you've already been discussing in other areas.
Can I add here that the program is funded by two totally separate funding sources, but it is one program. So there are not different rules for the two different funding sources. As we talk through the program, those are the program rules. The funding sources are really only going to play as you're doing your claims.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will be, I probably it doesn't really matter, but I probably should have switch them. We are going to be utilizing ARPA first, and then the appropriations bill. And as Emily said, that'll come into play when you do your fiscal reporting, but not much else, because the program guidelines and rules and everything are exactly the same. There's no difference, just because the funding sources are different. And another one major difference between this and Tom's programs is this is a temporary, at this time, temporary program, and we have to have all funding out the door by September 2023. I've heard several talks of them, you know, doing some studies. There is a pilot that they are doing. I just learned yesterday, we were hoping, Emily, that it was going to be that they were requesting to work with states in order to pilot a program to continue to to study the need for the funding. But it appears that it's actually going to be them working with vendors. So it'll be the utility companies that they're working with. So we'll see how that goes as well. But right now, temporary program funding needs to be out the door by September 2023. Come on, there we go. All right, so as I said, we did build a lot of the program based on the EAP program. So there are several similarities, and so we're going to talk a lot about the similarities and differences now. First and foremost, the application launch date. You should, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, already have seen the applications. They should be going out, okay? And in a couple slides, we'll talk about the only differences you really should have seen for water. There's not much of a difference on those applications for water. So it's fairly simple when it comes to the actual application part. The eligibility and the documentation requirements are exactly the same for both EAP and water. Your program service provider areas are exactly the same. And if for some reason you need list of those, I think the vendors would probably need lists of those more obviously than you would, you know, your service areas. But if anyone would need lists, we have those. And we are utilizing the established EAP processes, procedures, etc., because they work. So why, oh, sorry. I just saw that. Is anyone not seeing a slide that says program similarities?
I'm seeing program similarities.
Okay. If you're not, I think it was Angela, it's probably
I'm still this is Ingrid. I'm still seeing water program overview.
huh. Okay.
Interesting. We might actually try to unshare and reshare.
Yeah, that's what I'll do. It's very interesting.
Ingrid again, now key program differences popped up.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah,
hang
I'm
on.
guessing that was the issue.
Well, I didn't even stop sharing. Now nothing. Hang on.
Correct. No, nothing.
Okay.
You're not nothing. We're seeing Emily and Tom.
Okay.
All right, now I'm seeing key program differences.
Yeah, that's too far. Okay, this is the slide I was just on and talking through. So now can you see program similarities?
I can. How about you all?
No, I can't.
All right, we're
It says some process details.
Huh.
All right. It looks like some folks are just a little delayed because I'm getting some yeses and some nos, but more yeses than nos. So, and then now we're getting more yeses for program similarities. So actually, just for you to know, when you switch a slide, it's going to take a minute or so for everybody to catch up with you.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Emily, correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks to me like anyone who says external after their name is seeing it. Anyone who says guest after their name, for the most part, aren't seeing it. Well, I see Carol has guest after her name and she sees it, but for the most part, that seems to be the pattern.
Huh.
Yeah, it's just taking a little bit longer for those.
Okay. So just slow down maybe once I switch slides. Sorry.
Yeah, just at the switch of the slide. I mean, and you can talk, just, you know, make sure you're not flipping too fast.
Okay.
It's keeping good.
Yeah, it's the joys of all being virtual now, but we're all staying healthy and safe, right? Okay. So we are at the use of the EAP processes and procedures and everything else that we kind of piggybacked on because it works. We utilized everything that we could that fit because it is already a well-established program and it works. Tom runs it excellently, and so why not continue to do that, and why reinvent the wheel? So, and especially when I think what program launch date, I wasn't here yet, but April is maybe when they started the process of being able to get program data or information out that the programs were coming, and then the state plans were due in August. So pretty quick turnaround. So yeah, it's not surprising that they wanted us to build it off of something already working and already in place. So because of these overlaps, applicants can apply for both of the programs using the same application. As I said, you've seen those applications so already, you should have, and supporting documentation if they wish. You and your staff can also encourage the households that apply for only one program to apply for the other when you see the need. You know, we obviously can't just mark it for them, but it's kind of silly when they are categorically eligible not to, if they're applying for EAP, not to apply for water and vice versa. So we would strongly recommend that they apply for both. Any questions on that? All right, I'm going to move to the next slide and let me know if there's too many issues here. So now it should be key program differences. Majority, I'm seeing yeses, we see it. All right, so we're really focusing on the difference for the water assistance program, since majority of you know that energy assistance. But water is temporary, where we know that at this point, at this point is temporary, and EAP is permanent. Households may or must be behind on their water or wastewater bills to receive any benefits. That's a huge difference between the two. Whereas when we know with EAP, you're encouraged to apply proactively. You cannot create a positive balance with the water program, whereas with energy, you can. Water, we can pay deposits and fees associated with that. We can pay reconnection fees, the disconnection fees, all of that, those types of fees that go along with it. Whereas in EAP, they cannot pay those. We don't have any distinction of in crisis. So like energy does, so there is no in crisis. No moratorium in water. There's no moratorium period. And then another kind of big one is that waiver, or kind of that max benefit, which is the $2,500 for water assistance and $1,000 for energy assistance. Tom, do you just call it a notification requirement, not necessarily a waiver?
That's correct. Yeah, we're not going to be approving or denying any of those large arrearage claims. We just want to have an idea when we're going to have a large one coming down, just so we can kind of keep an eye on where we are overall.
Right. Okay. But and we're going to get more in depth about the waiver process tomorrow. But it's essentially the same as Tom's. There will be an email sent in with questions, be the 3 or 4 questions that you will need to answer. And then, be on the LSP to document that in the client's file. But we'll go more, I pretty much did, but we'll go over it again tomorrow during that time frame. So, okay. Any questions on these 2 slides, or these 2 kind of boxes here?
We're getting some questions in the chat, but I think we're going to cover them in the next couple slides. So
Okay.
If we don't, let us know.
Okay. Need my caffeine drinking. Sorry. All right. So some of the process details that are more of kind of, I guess, already taking place, so are really important to cover. Some of our combined efforts that are going on right now as we speak are the outreach and marketing, and also obviously the application process. As you saw, the application, the checkbox for are they applying for water was added, along with who is their water or wastewater vendor. and then a place for them to put in their bill, their documentation for their bill. And, you know, those are intentionally being combined to encourage those applicants and clients to see the two as an integrated program, since so many houses need both. So we really want them to apply for both. So seeing them side by side like that on the application, and seeing the outreach and the marketing materials being offered together, and seeing them in the same brochure, for example, or same social media posting, really gets that idea into their head that they really should be applying for both. So hopefully we won't have to, you know, on your end, be pushing them as much to apply for both. It'll just be done. They'll just do it. Because we really, really need to get, you know, this money out the door in 3 years. Yes, it's a one-time payment. It is a question that was in the lobby. I don't know if that was one I should answer right then, but that's fine. Okay. The separate tasks are our internal processes. Is that what I mean? Emily?
It is all of the internal processes.
Yeah.
So there is a separation internally between EAP and water. So externally facing, we want the clients to see a single program, to see something that they're applying for both for. But internally, they are separate. They are different programs that need to be billed differently. That need to make sure that the reporting and the financial pieces are really separate, because we have to report that up to the federal government. And so internal processes need to be separate, and we need to understand whether we're doing EAP or we're doing water with every task that we do. And we have some slides to describe that a little bit better later on, so that you know which thing is EAP and which thing is water. But just for you to know that, like, it's important that your internal processes are separate for EAP and for water.
Right. Okay. All right. And the benefit letters, obviously, when they are notified of the benefit that they're receiving, it will be separate.
So I think we have it set up right now that the benefit letter itself is the same, but that there will be a separate benefit line for
Okay.
water. But there will be some situations where you'll need to, you know, do a separate benefit letter for water. For instance, if you have to do the water benefit later than the EAP benefit because the vendor isn't in our system. But yes.
Right. Yeah.
Just know that the benefit letters, the letter itself is the same, but there's going to be water specific language.
And yeah, again, because we are utilizing different funding sources, and because EAP has the benefit matrix, and several other things, but those are probably the two main reasonings behind why we have to separate them out. You know, that work has to remain separate, especially for the reporting. I think there was a question. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I just saw it did apply, so I was making sure. Okay. All right. Any questions on this slide? Okay. All right, Emily, this is kind of your baby. You created this, so do you want to talk through this slide?
Sure, sounds good. All right, so this is just a slide to show that separation of what is the same as EAP and what is different than EAP, to that point that we were making the last slide. So I'm just going to talk you through quickly. The green is what shows on the outside as a single process. So there will be co-branded single process LIHWAP and water outreach, promotion, as well as the application itself, which you see in water is incorporated into the EAP application. So to a client, this should look like one program. However, when it comes inside, it is not one program, it is two different programs. So what you see in blue is energy assistance program, and that is what can be paid for with LIHWAP funding. What you see in yellow is water program, and that is what can be paid for with water funding. And it's really important that you're able to differentiate this internally through your organization because of, you know, what needs to be billed or claimed to each program. So I'm going to walk you through this, and I don't have a pointer, so I'm going to try to describe it as well as actually I do. Hold on. Can you give me control, Ashley? Thanks. Can you see my pointer whizzing around over here? Yeah, I have a pointer. Okay, so let's start with, you get an application through your normal routes, online application, mail-in, whatever it is. If that client has applied for EAP in any way, so at the very top it'll say, are you applying for EAP or for water? If EAP is checked, regardless of whether water is checked, if EAP is checked, this is an EAP application. So if EAP is checked at all, you're going to go down here, anyone applying for LIHWAP, with or without water. And you're going to do your normal EAP process. Water isn't messing with your normal EAP process. You're going to do income verification. You're going to determine what the EAP benefit is. You're going to go through the transmittal process. All of that is EAP. All of that happens according to plan. However, after EAP income verification, once that's determined, that client now has categorical eligibility into water. It's important for you to know that that doesn't work the opposite way. So if somebody's eligible for water, that does not make them eligible for EAP. But if they're eligible for EAP, they are eligible for water from an income verification standpoint. And so this is why we want to send everyone through EAP to determine eligibility, income eligibility, rather than through water. So once their income verification happens in EAP, they have categorical eligibility, and then you can toss them into the water program. We'll go through this a little bit tomorrow, but you'll have 48 hours once income verification in EAP is completed to then determine benefits in water. Now I'm anticipating you're going to do this at the same time as you're working this client file. But if you have a process that separates water from EAP determination, just know that you only have a couple of days to go from income verification in EAP to water benefit determination. We don't anticipate water benefit determination to take a particularly long time. It's a pretty easy process. It's definitely easier than EAP benefit determination. But you hop over here once they're income verified. You hop over here to water and you determine the benefits for water, and then you go ahead and do that transmittal process just like you do on EAP. It is built into EAP Connect. It should be pretty simple. All right, that is for anyone who's applied for EAP. We really hope that everyone applies for both and that there are no water only applications. However, we had to make it possible to submit a water only application. That was one of the rules that we had from the feds. So we do have the opportunity for someone to do a water only application. Like I said, we hope that not many do, because the income verification is the exact same for EAP. And so if you're income qualified for water, why aren't you, asking for both? But if somebody truly does want to apply for water only, fine, you receive their application, you go over and you start doing income verification through water. That means that it is paid for through the water program, but only if it's water only. The income verification is literally the same process as it is for EAP, so you won't have to learn new income verification. I'm getting a question. There are no social security numbers required for water only. There are. It's the same income verification process that you need to do for EAP. Once they're income verified under water, then you can go ahead and go down here and do the water benefits determination and transmittal process.
And I have an upcoming slide all about that too.
Cool. So what I'll need as you guys are prepping for this and creating your own internal plans for this, what we will need from you is to have your processes very clearly identify when the work that an intake worker is doing is billed to water and when it's billed to EAP. and you'll have significantly more billed to EAP because hopefully the majority of clients that come through will be EAP clients that'll then be categorically eligible for water. Do you have questions on that process and which thing is which? All right. I'll turn it back over to you, Ashley.
Okay.
Oh, I'm getting a hand up from Rosa.
Okay.
I just got a quick question. If they only apply for water, do you suggest or encourage us to see if they want to apply for EAP? Or can we just go ahead and push them over for EAP since we are already determining eligibility?
Yeah,
both
so you
ways, and I'm
can't
assuming the
push them
requirements
into,
are the same?
yeah, you can't push them into EAP without their permission, but I do recommend letting them know that it may benefit them to have you check that EAP button for them. So yes, I do recommend catching those and asking, making sure that they don't want to apply for EAP because they probably should.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to lower your hand. Anybody else? If they don't qualify for EAP, well, they still may qualify for water. No, the EAP and the water requirements are exactly the same. So if they don't qualify for EAP, then they don't qualify for water. So you theoretically, right, if they aren't categorically eligible for EAP, you should be able to throw them back in here into water verification. But the water income verification is exactly the same as the EAP income verification. And so if they didn't hit EAP, they're not going to hit water. So we don't want to waste the time doing that. Brad, it looks like I got a hand up from you as well.
Oh, you're on
You're
mute.
muted. There you go.
Forgot about that. So if they apply for both, they are not behind in water. Is EAP Connect going to create a letter stating that they were not approved for water, or is that something internally we're going to have to do?
The EAP, what their benefit letter will say is it just won't have a benefit for water.
Okay.
And so you may actually need to describe why.
Okay. Thank you.
Ingrid, it looks like your hand is up.
Yes, I think even if a household applies for just water, we should still ask them for a heating and an electric bill, because I think sometimes we have folks saying, I don't want help on my electric bill when they've applied for EAP because it's in somebody else's name. And so they don't want to provide that information. And I wonder if some folks will say, I only want to apply for water because the utility bills are in somebody's name that's not put on the application. And so this is just food for thought.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I just want to make sure that you all know that you cannot, like, if somebody goes through the water income verification process, they are not categorically eligible for EAP. So they have to, before you do income verification, they have to agree to let you put their EAP information in. And they have to agree to go through the EAP income verification process. It's the same process, and I know this, but legally, water is not categorically eligible for EAP. EAP is categorically eligible for water. And so, yes, absolutely. Ask them, if they're applying water only, call them and say, hey, are you willing to submit your energy and your gas bills to us? We think you may benefit from EAP. Can we send this through as a application for both? I think that'd be a really good thing to do. All right. Can they apply for water only and then return and apply for EAP? But can they apply for EAP and then later return for water? No, they get one shot at this application. So we'll want to catch them ahead of time and say, all right, do you mean to be applying for both? The client may apply for both to find out they couldn't get water assistant because they weren't behind, and then come back later and apply only for water after that. This will be really confusing. It will be really confusing, and it is not allowed. You get one shot at this for water. When you apply, you're applying for your water. If you aren't behind on your bills, that's your shot. We're trying to keep this as simple as possible. And that means that there are some things that may be a little bit less client friendly than EAP is. And we're aware of that. This is a one-time small program, and we want to keep it that way. And so we'll have some pretty hard lines around that. And we'll talk through some of those as we go on. Is there going to be something in the application explaining to clients that if they are ineligible if they're not behind? Let's work on that. I'll write down that answer. That question.
Like it's in the material, it's on the website, but I don't know if it's like on the application. Is that what the question was?
Yeah. But we will make it as clear as we can in the promotional material that in order to receive water benefits, or you can be eligible for water benefits, income eligible for water benefits, and not have an arrearage, and it only pays arrearages. So it's not that you're not eligible, it's that you don't have an arrearage to be paid. And so we'll try to make that as clear as we can in the marketing materials, but I do think that that's something that'll probably need to be, just something that we're all saying over and over again to clients. And then Laura says, if they apply for EAP only, we can automatically give them the water benefit, but not vice versa. And that is not true. They need to actually click the water button in order to have applied for water. And so you may also, if you're getting EAP only applications, if you'd like to, you can ask, are you sure you don't want to be considered for water as well? And at that point, they'd have to, say yes and then send you their water bill. All right. It's all you, Ashley.
Okay. Alrighty. Make sure we're good. No more questions. All right. Oh, nope. Back to you.
This is me too. Goodness.
And the next.
All right. So one of the questions was this, so now I get to answer it, which is, somebody asked the question, will we help with a press release for you all? We're actually doing a lot of additional state level support on the marketing and outreach side for this, because it is weird and it is new, and we thought, this might need some additional marketing. So there are a few things that are happening at the state level. We're doing a press release at the state level. We're doing some online social media. We're doing some online advertising, trying to remember dates and preemptively talk about those with clients across the state. But we're also going to do some support for you all on the marketing side. By all means, keep doing what you're doing. Our marketing stuff is going to be just in time. So it's going to be like week of, here's a material that you can use this week. We will do a press release that is plug and play for you, just right before the program year opens. So right before that October 1 online application date. We're working on a design for a flyer that you can print off and have on site if you want to hand it to people. We have a few social media posts that we'll provide for you throughout the year. Reminders for key dates. We updated the EAP brochure to include some of this, just so that you don't have to do all of that on your own and you can have some good marketing material. And I know this is probably just a portion of what all you're already doing. And I know you do mailers and things like that toward the beginning of the year. We're going to do what we can to get you some items to help you out with some of that marketing. But like I said, just because we have been running water as quickly as possible, but it's a real short turnaround time, most of the support that we're providing to you will need to be just in time. So, the week before, it would be something that you'd send out. So I'm getting a couple questions and I'm going to go backwards, which is not best practice, but how soon will we be getting these? applications are already headed out in the mail. Yeah, we knew we'd missed the first round of applications. We do have like a little mail insert that we're working on, and we're hoping to get that to you by October 1. If you happen to be doing a mailing after that, by all means, please go ahead and include it. Our goal is to provide a little bit of support, but we know that you're probably doing things on a faster timeline than we are. So use them if you can. But again, it'll probably be the week before October 1 before we're able to get the first round of things out to you. So don't wait on us. If you have something that needs to go out, do it. But just know that we're planning on providing a little bit more support than we have in the past. This may hurt the at-risk clients since it won't be out to them with the EAP application. So this is true. And if you would like to put a little note to them that says apply for both water and, please check both boxes, you're welcome to put that in any of the messaging that you have put together with those EAP applications. All right, I'm getting some questions up here. They apply for water and they're not behind. A checkbox. See if Rowan can put a box to check. This will print a statement on the letter. Yeah, we've been working with Rowan on what all statements on the letter can exist. I think this won't be perfect the first year, and we'll try to figure it out as we go. We know that there's going to be a statement about paying water and your rent. We know that it's going to have the benefit amount and the provider if they do get a benefit. We're working on if they don't get a water benefit, if it's possible to say that in there. So yes, that's a great idea. We're working on it. It may happen by the beginning of the program year. All right. That's marketing. I think the next slide is mine as well, so I'm going to roll right into it.
Yep. I don't know if it'll let you click to the next one, so I'm trying.
Got it. All right. And I'm going to stop control because I don't think I need. Okay. That's all you. All right. So the other thing that's happening at the beginning of this program year, which is brand spanking new, which may or may not go well, is that we have a contract. Well, we're working on a contract with 211 to provide application support. This is not supposed to usurp anything that the LSPs are doing, but I'm hoping that it does help with the amount of calls, like cold calls that you all get in. So this is different than 211 in general. So normally we send people to 211 for resource and referral. That still exists and is separate from what I'm talking about right now. What I'm talking about right now is that we have a contract for a bypass on the 211 system where they'll say, click 3 for help with your EAP application. The client will click 3 and that person will only be trained to walk somebody through the EAP application. And they will, this is somebody who may have English as a second language or who may not have a high reading level or who may just not be comfortable using the technology to submit an application online. That 211 representative will be able to talk them through, here's the information we need. They'll be able to submit on behalf of that client, but they will not be able to upload documents, which, is a huge problem. Because documents have to come in order to have an accepted EAP application. And so these 211 operators will kind of try to hold the hand of the folks who are calling to help them know exactly what documentation they need to gather and exactly how to get it to you all. So, you've been working with Liz over the last few weeks to give really specific information on how to get to you. And so we're going to be sharing that with this particular group of 211 operators so that they can send documents to the best possible place for their specific county. Like I said, this is a very small amount of what it is you all do for EAP intake, but because we're adding water and because we're doing some state level Marketing, we want to have a little bit of a landing spot where if somebody's uncomfortable filling out the application, somebody can just walk them through that application and give them incredibly good instructions on where to get documents to and what documents to get to you. I anticipate, my hope for this is that you'll get more complete documentation from people who have been through this process, because somebody will have walked them through what documentation they need. But I know that it doesn't solve a lot of problems. We're trying it out this year just because we know that there's going to be increased volume, and we'll keep in contact throughout the year to see how it's working. But those folks at 211 will know that like water and EAP go together. This is one application. Please click both if you can, unless the client disagrees with clicking both. And it'll be able to walk them through that. And so if you have someone who does call you that literally just needs application support, you can send them to this. But I know that all of the actual content and programmatic questions are still going to come to you. So we'll keep updating you on this. The plan right now is to have this be open from October 4 through the end of the program year in May. And it does cover EAP and water because externally facing, it is the same application. So it's the same process for them. I just wanted to let you know that that's happening in addition to some of the marketing stuff that we're doing at the state level, which should be able to help. Probably a long shot, but if a client submits their water bill and they do not check water, can I presume they want both? Actually, let's make a determination on that, because if they submit their water bill, I could see an argument for presumptive, like us presuming that they applied for water if they submit their bill.
Okay.
Or should a call be made to ask the question? I don't want to give you guys extra calls to make if they attach their water bill. I feel it's reasonable to assume that they meant to apply for water. But we need to write that down if that's a rule. Liz, can you remind us to write that down? Thanks.
Hey, Emily, just to kind of piggyback on that, I do think that the language that we have in our signed release statement, basically authorizing us to use the information for, to see if they're eligible for other programs, would support that use.
Awesome. Will clients dial 211? Yes. If they want application support, they can dial 211 and then click, I don't know what the prompt will be yet, but click a prompt to bypass the system and get specific EAP application support. And that'll be staffed from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
If I could jump in here as well.
Yeah.
Thanks. I was just going to reiterate that we would really encourage your staff to let folks know if they're calling you and saying, I feel a little unconfident about filling out my application, or do you have a volunteer who can walk me through this? Please utilize the 211 support. Take that off your plate and say, I hear you and I can offer you this great support. All you have to do is call 211. That way your team is freed up for some of the responsibilities that are beyond what 211 is capable of providing, because they are not going to be answering questions about benefit determinations or eligibility. So save that for your team and push this off on the 211 folks, because they can support you. Okay.
Most 211 calls bounce back to our agency since we have our own call center. Once we have a direct prompt, it will be helpful to share. Yeah. You're right. And I think the 211 call-in bypass will help with that. But we'll let you know more about how to get directly into that 211 line when we know more. Like I said, we're building a lot of this real fast right on the front end of this program here. Will EAP Connect create a denial notification with clarification for the water program if they are otherwise approved for EAP? They will not. It is a single benefit determination letter that will have their EAP benefit on there, and then we're working to see what the what our options are for saying you do not qualify for a water benefit. All right, Brad, your hand is up.
Yeah, just real quick, you are talking Indiana 211?
Yes.
Because last year we got calls from New Jersey, New York. So you are talking Indiana 211.
Indiana 211.
Thank you.
I cannot fix other states 211s. I don't know what to do about that. I'm sorry. But we do have a good relationship that we've been building with 211, and we're hoping that that'll help us make sure that the resource and referral side of 211 is doing a good job. We're going to link them up with just the Community Action Agency's basic information, how to get a hold of them, rather than those really specific how to get documents to you. So they'll have a different set of information on how to contact you in the resource and referral side than they will from the application side, if that makes sense.
Carla asked, will the 211 operator fill out the application for the customer if needed? Yes.
Yes.
The only thing that will be missing is the actual documentation. So then that will fall on the client to then take their bill and their identification, all of the documentation, actually needed to a drop-off location or to a LSP office to be put into the client file. And they're not
and the 211 folks will know that right when they submit that application, they're going to tell the client, you have a 14-day window to get this documentation to the LSP. If you don't, you'll be denied. So they'll tell them that right up front, and they'll tell them what all information to send you. And so you just go on about your process, send that soft denial. After 14 days, hard denial if they don't get their documentations into you. I got another question. Can we create a letter to send to the clients with a denial for the water benefit? I have that on my list for us to tackle to make sure that we're talking about behind the scenes here. I know that we're working to get that in the benefit letter that says, here's your water benefit, or you're not eligible for water benefit. And that should be pretty clear. But if that's not possible or that doesn't work, that's the case where we would create a special water benefit denial letter. We're hoping we don't need one that is specific to water, that it'll just be another benefit that you get when you apply. Like I said, from external, we want it to look like a single program, and that this is another benefit that you get. So we're working on that. That's on our, that's now on our list. Thank you for the question. We'll see what we can do.
Rosa, did you have another question?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
When the 211 staff submits the application for the client, is that going to be, is it coming in as the client, or is it coming in as 211 staff name support?
It's coming in as the client. It is on behalf of the client. You will know that it's 211 because they're going to have to bypass the documentation. So right now, the EAP application, EAP and water application, you cannot submit it if you don't have documentation. There will be a bypass that only 211 operators can get to that will allow that application to be submitted without documents. And so you'll know that it's that, but we want you to process it in the queue as though it is any other application. So it'll be incomplete as soon as it comes in. You'll send out that 14-day notice. And then if they get the documents to you, great. And if not, then you'll deny them.
And second question to that.
Mm-hmm.
Can the client submit documentation through the portal, or does it have to be outside the portal?
If they feel comfortable, logging in, because the 211 operator will create them a login if at all possible. And they're welcome to log in and upload those documents if they feel comfortable doing so. We're guessing that the people who are going to use this service are going to need to walk in or deliver or mail in their documents. But yeah, they can use the portal.
Thank you.
All right, Brad, it looks like you have one more.
Yeah, just real quick. So you're saying online only is 211. They're not doing any type of paper applications or anything, correct?
So we're gonna look to see if there is a way, if they cannot create a login for the client on behalf of the client, like the client doesn't have an email address, so that they can create that login.
Right.
We may need to have them do a fax or email, probably email. We may need to be able to do an email application for that. Just for those clients that literally cannot create a login, but they will be, we're gonna get them to create a login, and if that is in no way necessary, we might need an email option to get those applications to you.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Yep. All right, let's keep going.
All right. All right. Are we seeing application information? Yes, no, maybe so. Yes, okay. All right. So, this will be again, correct me if I'm wrong, but what we have decided for water is there needs to be, and this is mandatory, at least one physical location available per county for drop off. It doesn't have to be something that's manned 24 hours a day by any means or anything like that, but just something to where someone can stop by and drop off the document or the application. So, and you guys already know this, but it's just kind of reiterating, especially now that we have the 211, the different ways to turn in the applications, online, 211, which again, that would be, application support only. So 211 would be documentation, submission instructions. So they collect all their base info, but they would not be able to actually finish the submission of the application because they don't have that the possibility of being able to verify that documentation. Walk-ins, mail, snail mail, fax. I'm sure a lot of you probably despise fax or maybe don't even have fax anymore, but it's still available, and proxies are obviously still available. And this last part, the extra fields, that's something I've been referring to kind of or alluded to several times so far, which is kind of what has been taken from the water program and added to the EAP application in order to give, the simplest way for the clients to then apply for the water. So the extra fields are just a checkbox. Do they want to apply for water? Yes, they check the box. A place to upload the bill or bills, because they might have water and wastewater. They might have, several months that they're behind in arrearages. And they may have them broken down because we do have, the vendor list that I have been creating, just keeps growing and growing. But, we have 91 counties in the state of Indiana, and then, way more than that of water vendors. So, those places to upload, they may have a bill for a water provider and then also a bill for the wastewater. So it just depends on how it's set up in their particular county. So then, and we also want to know who their water and wastewater provider are. So those are the differences that you should be seeing on that application. Any questions?
I'm going to answer out loud one of the questions I just answered in chat for anybody who only has audio, and that the question was, will 2-on-1 have EAP Connect access? 2-on-1 will not have EAP Connect access. They're going to see it as the public will see it. And so they will not be able to say like anything about your application is complete, your application is in review, where it is in the process, none of that. They'll just be able to submit on behalf of that client.
Okay. Anything else? All right. All right. These are the allowable expenses, and this is coming straight from the Office of Community Services. So this is the federal guidelines. And I thought it was important to approach it this way so you could understand it, understand it at the state level. So if you hear, well, this other state is doing it this way, why aren't we doing it this way? Or, certain things, that's at least here. Well, I guess no, I did not put in the attempts to help with high water burden bills that are just current. That is a possibility that we could look at in the future, but you have to have a matrix involved to do that. And so at this point, we're trying to focus on those that are disconnected and those that are in arrearages. So, yeah, so we're just kind of playing it kind of by ear, I guess, with these first, with this first year, and see how the funding goes out the door this first time. So, water and wastewater arrearages, those are allowable expenses. Fees associated with water disconnection and reconnection. And then again, where that really differs from EAP is that deposits, you can have those paid with water, whereas in EAP, you cannot have that paid. And water costs for renters whose utilities are included in the rent. This is one of the key aspects that came back from the Office of OCS in our state plan, because at first we stated, and other states, several other states said the same thing, we are not going to serve any clients whose water or wastewater is included in their rent. And the main reason why we did that at first was because that's not what we felt the intention of the grant was for. And it wasn't that we didn't feel that landlords were also in crisis during this time as well. But this was intended, these water appropriations were intended to assist homeowners or renters to get back on their feet and get a fresh start on these bills, get their water turned back on so that they have basic services like drinking water. And what this was doing was just going back to the landlord, not necessarily helping the renter in any way. So that is something that we're going to talk more in depth on tomorrow, but know that yes, now we are covering costs for renters whose utilities are included in their rent. Special rules will apply. We are going to be doing it through our IERA program, which for those, if you don't know it, is the rental assistance program that is run out of IHCDA. So, you know, we have, again, kind of how we've done this with EAP, we're going to have something that we can build it off of and kind of have a process already in place that we're able to piggyback off of and run it through, and hopefully it will continue to go smoothly. So I think, I'll go ahead and go through these prohibited, and then Emily, do you want to answer a few, or do you want to do those?
Yeah, I have some questions. So go through prohibited and then I'll answer the questions in the chat.
Okay. All right. Well, are there any? No, we'll wait. Do you want me to wait on all of questions till we go through the chat questions?
I can do it now. So the first set of questions is can 211 be given limited access? This year, no. It requires a rebuild of EAP Connect system to let them in. We didn't have the time to make that happen for this year. So if this works, yes, we can consider for future years having 211 have additional access to EAP Connect, but they do not for now. I was wondering, is IHCDA sending checks to vendors, or are those going in over claims? Oh, this is 3-part. Are we? So that checks are going directly to vendors from IHCDA.
Mm-hmm.
There is not a way to do a direct pay. We cannot pay clients directly. We can only pay vendors in this program. That maybe for future slides that we do on differences, that should be one of them. We are only allowed to pay the vendor for water and wastewater.
I thought I had that on there. I'm sorry. I thought I had.
No, that's fine. And yes, that transmittal process happens the same way EAP does. Are we getting admin dollars for this program? Yes, you're getting both admin. There will be 4% admin and 4% benefit determination. And so benefit determination is direct hours determining benefits. And then admin is overhead admin. Is there a cap for the disconnect notices? There is a total cap for all water and wastewater combined of $2,500. Am I correct that they must be on a disconnect? No, they do not need to be on a disconnect. They do need to have arrearages. And to the next question, as long as their water sewage bill is past due, can we pay the entire bill? No, this is the same rule as exists right now in EAP. You can pay the arrearage, you can pay the fees, you can pay reconnect, you can pay deposits, but you cannot pay current month bill because that is not an arrearage. Can a client who is signing up to receive water and stuff due to moving into a new residence, can we use those funds to pay their water utility deposit? They can't be behind on water to utility unless they're a new if they're a new customer. That is true, and we can only pay if they're behind. So no, it can't help somebody who's moving into a new residence with a new water company. If they're moving into a new residence and they have a water company, the same water company they've been with for a while, and they can't get water set up in their new residence because they owe that water company money, you can pay those arrearages. But if they're switching water companies, you cannot pay their old arrearages, and you can't pay any forward money on their new water bill. All right, if 211 has a requirement to submit for the client without documents, can PACE call center have the same obligation to assist client to complete non-aligned application and submit without documents? Brad, let's talk offline about this. Shoot me an email. I think we can talk about it because we will have a way to do that. And so I think logistically it would just require doing a unique login for PACE call center folks. So technologically possible. Let's talk about it. If a landlord will not provide a client a copy of their water bill, they will not qualify for a water benefit, correct? Correct, we need a water bill. Because we have to see a water bill in order to pay those arrearages. And if a landlord, we'll go into the landlord stuff later. If they're working with a landlord, it's going to be tricky. There's going to be a process. We're going to go into it in depth tomorrow. If someone applies in October with a water arrearage, can we cover that? Any a water arrearage at the time of application is what we can pay for. Northwest also has a call center. Great. Shoot an email to me and Liz, and we'll take care of talking through whether that is something we can make happen.
Yep.
All right, those are all the questions that exist in chat right now. So let's do unallowable expenses.
Alrighty. Okay.
I'm sorry. This is actually when we said we were giving everyone a quick break.
Oh,
I don't
yes.
want to.
Okay, that sounds fine. So it's 10:31, and so let's be back at 10:46. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. See you soon.
Thank you. All right, guys, it is 10:46. So we will go ahead and get back into things.
I got a couple questions in the break. Would you mind if I answer them before we hop into prohibited expenses? Because they sound like items from what we were talking about before break.
Yep, absolutely.
Cool, thanks. So the first question is, does the water bill have to be in the household member's name? And the answer is that these follow the same rules as EAP. So you'll have a separate place in EAP Connect to enter the household or the name on the bill. And you do need to certify that it is connected to the household where they live. But it does not need to be in a household member's name. There's like a special form to fill out if it's in the name of somebody really wonky. But the answer is generally no. You're following a process for that. Tom, is there anything else I need to say about that?
Not that I'm aware of at this time.
Cool. And then the other question was, the water is a one-time assistance. Will EAP Connect identify these clients for future programs? CARES Act had some hiccups. I think a good clarifying thing here is we have not yet decided whether or not the water program is a one-time only benefit. It is definitely once in a year. Depending on how much we use this year, we may decide to make it the same rules again for next year, so the client can apply again next year. We haven't made that call yet, and so that is a TBD. Something that you guys should know. It is a one-time benefit this year. It is just like EAP is. We'll have to see how utilization looks before we make that decision about what we're going to do with it next year. But yes, it is in. It is all in EAP Connect in a way that CARES Act wasn't. So that should be identifiable. Can we use the utility affidavit for water and declaration of absent member form? I don't know exactly what those forms are. Tom, can you help me translate that question?
So sure. So the utility affidavit is used when the utility bill, either heating or electric, is in the name of somebody who is neither a household member nor the landlord. And it basically allows us to pay a benefit to that household anyway, because by filling out the utility affidavit, the household member is affirming under penalties of fraud and perjury that household member, that name on the bill does not reside in the household and does not contribute to household income. So right now, the utility affidavit is set up in a way where it specifically captures for electric and heating, but it could easily be altered for water if you guys decide to go in that direction. And as far as the absent household member form, so that's something we use if there's a name of a non-household member on a vital piece of documentation. For instance, a bank statement for someone who's using their bank account to show their fixed income, or if there's another name on the home ownership form, for people who are applying for the emergency repair and replacement. And basically, it's similar to the utility affidavit in that it's basically affirming this person does not live in the household and does not contribute to household income.
Great. So the answer to both of those is yes. They, as applicable, will be utilizable for water. But remember, we have to pay the utility and can only pay the utility. So there will be no client direct pay for this one. Yeah. But yes, those forms should ride. And I know we talked to Brad about that on the utility affidavit already. But yes, you still need a utility bill. We cannot pay anything without a water or wastewater bill.
Yeah.
All right, I think,
Good.
Elaine, did that answer your question? Okay.
I
I
think-
think we're good.
Okay, yeah, she said
Give
yeah.
me a thumbs up.
Okay. All right, so let's go back to prohibited expenses. So yeah, water and water infrastructure repairs, water pipe removal or replacement, minor water pipe repairs, and HHS and NEADA. I recently was talking to Cassandra Lovejoy with NEADA, and she was saying, you know, they really have been saying, you know, use CSBG for something like a minor pipe repair. So that's something that, you know, I need to talk with Emily since I'm still learning, you know, our programs. If that's something that then I would be pushing over to RCSGB. Since Tina is here now, you know that.
Yeah, let me answer that now. So this is, we are not doing anything at this point at the state level to address this through CSBG.
Okay.
For those of you that are community action agencies, if you would like, this is an approved use of CSBG funds.
Mhm.
That if you want to use CSBG funds in that way, you are welcome to do so. We are not doing that at the state level.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. And I think this one's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, obviously it's all self-explanatory, but a big one that we've gotten a lot of questions about, and a lot of other states were, you know, wondering how it was getting handled, and that's the private well water and septic systems. So those are the expenses we do not cover, and yeah, well, and this is from, you know, federal guidance, so this will not change. This is nothing that would be, you know, subject to change throughout the next 2 years during the programmatic. When we take breaks to reevaluate, that this isn't anything that would change. Any questions there? Okay.
We got a question that says, if the water line is in the yard versus the house, does that make a difference? And the answer is no. LIHWAP funds cannot be used on infrastructure.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
They can only be used to pay for water bills. So if
Yeah.
the problem is a broken water pipe, we cannot fix the problem with this water funding. We can only pay the bill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So even if it's, you know, if you're asking if they're drinking water because of it's that their drinking water is coming from a different route than a normal route, it doesn't matter. There's another question. You got it, Emily.
I think we're all set on questions.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. All right. Income eligibility. Emily's gotten into that quite a bit, you know, or I guess touch base quite a bit on it as we've moved through some of the topical areas this morning, but a lot of it is, you know, the same as EAP. As Emily said, it's categorical eligibility with EAP. So if they qualify for EAP, they qualify for water, but again, not vice versa necessarily. So, but it is the same as EAP, 60% of the SMI. And if the applicant is applying for EAP, process within the same guidelines as the EAP guidelines. And I have a slide kind of coming up that goes into a little bit more in depth about that. And if, because we don't have a crisis process, I've got a few suggestions, just for that, but, it's just of how you might, process that a little differently. But if water only, obviously process it as received. There's no other way to process it, just as it has come in, as they come in with complete documentation, and then same thing with, going back and making sure that if they have incomplete files, getting those taken care of, sending them back for getting their documentations in, and then reprocessing them within those timeframes. Again, tomorrow we really kind of called it the nitty gritty, because we're gonna take a lot of the stuff we've talked about today, and we're going to go in depth with a lot of them. So benefit determination is one of those that we are going to talk more about, and specifically the how you determine their benefits, and how you ensure that you are getting them the correct amount of benefit, and so that they don't come back and dispute that and appeal that. So just the basics: it covers arrearages, current charges, deposits, and reconnections fees. And when we say current charges, again, that's just the current charges of someone who is, has an arrearage, who is disconnected, or in the process of getting a disconnect notice, because they have not paid their bills, and they know that disconnection notice is coming. Again, it cannot create a positive forward balance. I think that's a big one. That's a big difference. And it's one that you're going to have to keep in mind as you're dealing with this program, because that one is, something that you are probably used to doing quite often.
Can I make a clarification on the cannot create positive forward balances?
Yes, and the other.
Oh, I can do both. Yeah. So for the positive forward balances, that does not mean that you have to check with the utility and make sure that there is absolutely no positive balance created if, the client has made a payment on their arrearage. You do not have to do that legwork. That just means that you can only back pay arrearages and fees. The intent of the program is not to create a positive forward balance. But you don't have to basically call the utility and say, there's no way that this can create a positive balance, if that makes sense. Like the proof, the burden of proof here is in the bill itself. It is not in your relationship with the utility vendor.
Yeah.
And then I'll answer the other question, and then I'll take Brad's. You're correct, you cannot pay. I think it's around the use of the term current charges. So maybe we should make sure as we're finalizing the manual, we don't use current charges terminology here. What it means here is anything that is on the bill. It can only pay for things that are on the bill. But you're correct, it cannot pay the current month's bill, because that is not an arrearage.
Yeah.
So you're correct.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Brad, what's up?
Okay, so municipalities is electric, gas, water, wastewater all combined. Their past due or arrearages is all combined. So we will have to contact vendors to determine if an electric is past due or a water is past due because of the different funding. So again, you're saying current charges is what is on the bill.
Right. But it'll need to be only past due amount, not current month. So what we need to do is change the terminology on this slide to say any arrearages, fees, or deposits that currently exist,
Okay,
but not the active month's bill.
okay. Because technically the municipalities, like I said, they will combine into
Yeah.
one dollar amount past due, and there's no way for us to determine what is past due.
Yeah, and we'll need to do that. I honestly, I think that'll be the biggest amount of your time on this
Right.
water program is, you know, we're gonna do some vendor outreach and some vendor awareness building around the fact that they really need to separate out their arrearages between water and electricity and gas. Because each of those has a separate place to have it entered into EAP Connect, and it's gonna have to be separated out. And so figuring that out is probably gonna be the most difficult piece of what we'll ask you to do in benefits determination, so that you know that it's a water or wastewater arrearage that we're putting in there.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm. What if the due date is passed? Bill on October 3rd, application received October 8th. I don't care. You cannot pay the current month bill. Can I be any clearer about that? You cannot pay the current month bill. You can only pay arrearages, even if the date is passed. I really like, I know this is the rule in EAP too. So I want to be as clear as we can about it, because I don't want you guys to have paybacks, because I know that's really frustrating on your end.
Let's see, it looks like we have. We got some more hands, but there's a guess, but I don't know. Oh, yeah, I don't know.
My name's Angela. I think I forgot to put my name in. I'm so sorry.
Hi, Angela.
I know you keep saying prior. So we have some vendors where every month your bill is due by the 15th. After that is up for disconnect, and if not paid by the 25th, they're on disconnect. And that is the municipality where they have everything is all rolled together, their electric, water, and sewage. So at that point, those we cannot pay on those current charges then, correct?
Right, you can only pay arrearages. And I anticipate, because of how quickly some of these municipalities turn off water, some of them just won't have arrearages to be paid, because they'll just turn your butt off.
Okay. So until they get turned off, then we can't help them.
So you can, if they have an arrearage showing, you can pay that arrearage, and then you can pay reconnect fees, but they aren't gonna have a chance to give you a new bill at that point. So basically, if it doesn't exist in the bill that they initially apply with,
okay,
then we can't really do anything about it.
Okay.
And I know that that's going to be really frustrating on our end, because there will be a lot of people that we won't be able to serve, but we don't want people to like stop paying on their bill and create this gigantic arrearage or get themselves turned off.
Just to get the help. And
just to get the help. So what they apply with is what we got to work with. The whole, and this may have helped as we're talking about the program in general, the whole goal of this program, it is not the same as EAP. It is not, let's give people help with their water benefit or with their water payments. The real impetus of this is we've just been through a crazy time. There are a lot of people who are super behind, who are disconnected, who have huge arrearages and just can't get a leg up. And our goal is to get people to the point where they are even, so they can start taking over their bills again. So with this particular water program, our goal is to bring us up to current, make sure that we're connected and we're in good standing and they are good to start paying their water bill again. It is not to help them throughout the current year in making their water payment. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
The goal is just to get them back up on their feet. All right, I'm gonna put your hand down. Sorry, I think we only got through like 2 bullet points of your slide.
Okay, that's okay. All right. Oops. Okay. So, and I think Emily has said it a couple times, it has to be based on the current bill at the time of application. So it's an exact amount on the bill. And then I alluded that I would kind of just run back through the documentation that was necessary. It's the same as EAP, but just in case you need a reminder, the application, of course, the photo ID for applicant, social security number verification for all household members, income documentation for all adult household members, waste or water or wastewater bill, and other documentation as required according to the circumstances. So those are the documentations that you need. Okay.
Yeah.
Any
For
questions?
those that apply through EAP first, right? So they apply for both. You know, once their income qualified based on the EAP documentation, all they need is that water bill that shows some sort of an arrearage or disconnect. And that's the only thing above and beyond what EAP needs that water needs.
Yeah. All right. Good.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, I got a new question or two here. Can we verify with the utility provider if they're past due if the bill does not show it? So we can't provide provide payment for anything that isn't showing on the bill, but we can clarify the numbers that are on the bill. So if the bill doesn't show an arrearage, we can't pay an arrearage that's not there. But if the bill shows something and it's unclear, we can make those clarifications and notes with the utility vendor and get that paid. And then another question from Julie. You can apply once per program year, maybe, yes, for water, but does that mean only at the time of application? It does for water. We've made the determination that once per program year means only at the time of application. So for at-risk apps that went out yesterday, if those clients return their EAP apps tomorrow and then hear about LIHWAP in October, they can submit for an assistance in that later date. Oh man, you guys are trying to just make this hard on us. We're doing this to keep simplicity at the forefront of what we're doing. So I would recommend if you start receiving in applications that are EAP only and you anticipate that they may need water, I would reach out to them and ask, can we submit your water bill with this at the time of application?
Yeah.
And go ahead and get that water in there because we are not allowing people to come back for water. So let's see if we can get it taken care of at the front end.
Yeah, and we also don't want them seeing it on the application and thinking, I'm just going to start not paying it and see how far I can go before they'll let me apply for water now, you know? So we need them to apply when they, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. You know, get it turned in when they apply, and then we'll want to let them know that it is not guaranteed that this will exist next year. So keep paying your water bill.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Ingrid?
So Katie and I have had some discussion about that. If they don't submit a water bill, because let's face it, yes, it's on the application, but not everybody reads everything. So when we get the app and they did not supply the water bill, is it okay for us to call and say, hey, do you have a past due amount that's showing up on your water bill? And then just and not give them a really long time, because we don't have time to hold up an application, but just hold off, tell them, get it to us by the end of tomorrow, and then just hold off to approve the app until we have that, is because people are going to be upset if they go, you know what, my neighbor got help, I wish I had known. And I know we can very coldly say you should have read the application, your neighbor did. But I mean, is that doable for us to call them and say, do you have an arrearage on your bill? And then, give them a day to get that to us?
So I have 2 answers to this question.
That's great.
The first we actually have written down in a slide, I think, for next week. And that is, you can do anything that does not break EAP rules. You have to follow EAP rules. Don't break them, but yes. And then the second is, my lights just went off. Okay, there we go. The second way to answer is you have 48 hours from determining eligibility on EAP to determine the water benefit. And so if they allow you to say yes to applying for water, then you can submit that as a yes, as both EAP and water, and then get the water information in a day or so later and still be within your timeline for water.
That's
perfect.
14 days, or do they have 55?
It's 2 days from EAP eligibility determination.
Yeah.
My mind says no, but my gut says ask. Yeah. I feel like it's worth an ask. You don't want to, put people out, and I don't want to be super mean, but we also want really strict rules around this so that you guys aren't running around crazy trying to catch up with people who apply for water 6 months later.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Does the water bill submitted change the completion date for the EAP app? No, the EAP app, the submission date is the submission date. Nothing changes that. No, just like in EAP, if they give you documents later, it doesn't change the submission date or your 55-day window. Same story for water.
So Emily, I want to provide, I think, a little bit of clarification on what Elaine was asking.
Great.
So we actually
I don't
have,
think I got it.
Yeah, so in EAP Connect, we actually have a distinction between the application date and the application completion date. And so if someone provides an application on November 4th, but it's missing some documents, and then they get the rest of those documents in November 18th, then we actually document both dates in the system. And so she's asking if a water bill comes in late, which doesn't necessarily affect EAP benefit determination, is that going to change that completion date for the EAP application?
That is helpful. I think I speed read and just read the word submitted and missed the word completed. Great question. It should not change. We're trying to make water not change anything on the EAP side.
Yeah.
So it should not change anything on your EAP side. I'm not sure what that means on the water side. That may be a good question for us to look into.
Yeah.
But it won't submit your EAP completion date.
Right? No, Elaine.
So if they've completed that EAP, you just mentioned that there's 2 days after the EAP is submitted and processed for us to get a water bill.
So technically it's basically yes. So the rule is you got 2 days from the date that you determine income eligibility in EAP to get the water benefit determined. Which is usually you work an application in the same day that it, you just work that application that day. But you do technically have 2 days from the day you determine income eligibility on EAP to get the water amount entered.
So for apps that, as we're processing applications and and these floods start coming in and it takes us 30 days to process some of these apps till we get to them. If they submit that water bill, since we have not technically processed the eligibility determination, getting a water bill around the time that we're actually processing it, we're good, even though it's been 30 days, right?
Yeah. So we'll talk a lot more in depth about timelines, but that 55-day window for processing is the same in water as it is for EAP. Like if you're doing a water only, it'll still be that 55-day window for processing the application. But we just put the 2 days because we know so many are going through EAP. And what we don't want to happen is you process the EAP and then the water one is just hanging out there. So we need to make sure that those water benefits are processed at the same time as or near the same time as the EAP benefit is processed.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions right now? All right. Okay, so I think we've gotten through the basics then here. And we'll talk briefly about the benefit level. We'll go in depth tomorrow over the 2,500, that upper level. We'll discuss that in depth tomorrow, but again, it's based on the bill at the time of application. It is a one-time benefit. We set the minimum at this point for 50. We had talked about 25 at one point, but we went ahead and went with 50. If we need to change that, next time around we can next year, but I think 50's good. I don't, you guys would know probably as the experts in the field more than us of what levels you see, but I'm sure vendors do see pretty small bills at times. But if we're dealing with those that are in I don't want to call it crisis mode since we don't have that in water, but are dealing with the pandemic and issues, I'm sure it's a little higher than $50 at this point.
Yeah, and to clarify, that is $50 combined between water and wastewater.
Yeah.
So if they have $25 of each, that will hit that $50 threshold.
Yeah. And then, the maximum of $2,500 without a waiver. Just a base for the waiver. It's the same as Tom's process, in terms of being pretty basic of you're just going to email me requesting the waiver, but there'll be probably 3 to 4 questions, and those questions will be listed in a manual that you will have to answer in order to get that waiver. I'm not sure if Emily, if you have an idea in your head, if you think it'll be a difficult process, or if you think most of the time it's going to be approved. I don't know.
It should be pretty simple. We just want to make sure, $2,500 is a lot, especially on a water bill, or water wastewater bill. And so we will just probably want to review the bill itself and make sure that it makes sense why the benefit amount is that big. And to be honest, this is as much for us to feel comfortable with that as it is for you all, because that's a huge payback if it's not right. And so it just adds a little bit of a layer of us being able to take a look and say, yeah, that's a $3,000 bill right there. We're not promising that it won't be a payback if we review it, but like having an extra set of eyes on it should help.
Yeah.
So it's in place there for both of us.
Was the individual who said that they had an $11,000 bill in this meeting from last week or two weeks ago? Just curious. Tom, do you remember? No.
I do not. Sorry, it took my computer a second to unmute for some reason.
Oh, that's okay.
It looks like somebody said that was Cindy. And my question for that is that a purely water wastewater bill, or is that something that combines water, wastewater, energy? Is it one of those municipals? We'll just want to look at that. Make sure everything makes sense.
Yeah.
Before we put that through.
Yeah, it was like a leak or, what was going on. Okay.
If a client does not meet the minimum, the $50 minimum, do notes need to be made about that? Yeah, so you'll be entering into EAP Connect, and I think end of day tomorrow we'll have Brad here to walk you through what it looks like, what this looks like on EAP Connect. But there's a place for you to enter actual bill amount or actual arrearage amount for water and for wastewater, and then if it doesn't hit 50, the system will know that. And so I don't know that needs to be made in notes. I think that it should be noted through the system there. But I think Brad might be on, so if he thinks something differently, if that isn't caught already by the system, we can have him go over that tomorrow. But theoretically, you're entering the exact dollar amount that is arrearage and that is fee. And so if those sums don't add up to $50, we will see that without an additional note.
Yeah.
Will we get a Q&A document from today's questions? It would make a great training tool for all of us. That is a great idea. Let's do that.
Yeah, I think Liz is taking notes for me. And then I was planning on going back and just re-listening to everything and, taking down anything that she's awesome at taking notes, but anything that she maybe, I don't think she will, but didn't pick up on, or if there's something maybe that I wanted to add, then we can do that. And also from the first couple LSP presentations that Emily did, I kind of started that process as well. So I have questions that were asked there, and a lot of those are still really good questions that are still getting brought up like now. And so, we'll create an FAQ document for that. And I don't think it's in the PowerPoint per se, but we will have the water website is, I think the public facing might already be up there. I don't know how much is actually there, but it kind of was built off of what's it? The LIHWAP or and weatherization, I think both. So it's kind of already there. So there was a question about, sorry.
It looks like, will there be some QA questions specific to water or up to each agency to add? I don't think that there will be very much agency decision points in water. I think it's going to be pretty cut and dried. I would say that the agency decision points are how you decide to utilize staff time to make this happen. And so you will probably want some processes on your end for how to make sure that intake workers are billing their time appropriately to water versus to energy assistance. And that's probably the biggest process on the agency end that's for you all to work on. Everything else, like I said, it's pretty cut and dried and is all built into EAP Connect. So there shouldn't be too much craziness in terms of like, here are the things we decide, here are the things you decide. I think think we're calm on that, but you know, maybe at the end of the day tomorrow in our big Q&A session, you'll bring up a ton of things that I didn't think about.
Yeah.
Hope not.
Ditto. Okay.
And we might do that Q&A after tomorrow's session so that we have one big Q&A for the program after both, instead of just out of today's. Because we anticipate there will be some good questions tomorrow as well, just knowing how well you all know EAP and the inner workings between EAP and what we're asking you to do for water. I'm very sure that there will be some questions that you guys have that'll be really important for us to write down answers to.
Yeah. Yeah. So you said mostly save it all for tomorrow. Is that what you said?
So just finalize the Q&A with both today's questions and tomorrow's questions.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It would definitely be a document that would come out after all of this. And like I said, I think going back to even some of the initial ones that we did, there were still some questions that were good on there too. Okay. Is that it?
Yeah, I think those are the slides that we had for today. But I also know, so tomorrow, like Ashley said, we're hoping to dig a little bit more into the how does the process with vendors work? How do you do benefit determination? Some of those kind of more super detailed items. And we do have a pretty significant Q&A session for tomorrow. But based on what you've heard today, the basics, I would love to take any questions that you all have. I'm not sure exactly how much time we have left.
Have a half hour.
Great. So anything on the concept of the program and generally how it works that you have, knowing that we'll get into details of how to do the specific tasks tomorrow.
Would it help if I brought up the kind of agenda for tomorrow morning?
Sure.
Okay. Do that.
All right, Stacy, I see your hand is raised. Go ahead.
Was there any kind of agreement made with the water companies so when we call in to get bills, we won't, be up against a challenge, or if we need something, they say they want to apply, but they don't have their bill and we need to contact them? Was there some type of agreement or?
So this is a fun teaser for tomorrow, but I want to answer it because it's a big deal that's going to be tough. The water vendors will sign a memorandum of agreement directly with IHCDA. We have just gotten those back from legal, so those will be going out, and our goal is to have all of the water vendors sign that by November 1, by the time you start sending out transmittals. But there are 1,000 something water vendors, and not all of them are going to want to play nice with us. So, yes, there will be MOAs in place. They should know that they are part of this program and that they signed an MOA with us and that they will be answering calls from you. However, we will also probably have some water vendors that don't yet have a signed MOA as we start the process. And we will have a whole process for what you do in the case that the water vendor doesn't have a signed MOA with the state. Basically, we cannot give a benefit until we have a signed MOA with the water benefit or with the water vendor. And so you may be in the place of suggesting or advocating that water vendor sign an MOA with us. But at the end of the day, yes, there will be an agreement. We will have that signed directly with the water vendor. We're going to do everything we can to get as many as we can in by November 1st. But if somebody decides not to participate, their clients can't be served through the program.
Okay. And so second part of that, with the larger water vendors like Indiana Water, we were processing the IERA files here and, calling to get the water bills. And we had our own CARES Act, and we're on the phone for 45 minutes to an hour just on hold. So with the larger agencies, will there be any special contact phone number for us or an email to cut down that time if we do have to make those phone calls?
Yeah, we can definitely share with you our contact information, and that's something I'm gonna add to my list right now to ask water vendors as we go through the vendor MOA process, is if there is a direct contact. Like, we have our contact, but if there isn't a different contact that they'd like for you all to utilize, vendor MOA, who LSP should contact. Sorry, I'm writing it down.
All right, no, thank you for addressing it.
So we'll try to get you into the right person. We'll share our contact information. That doesn't mean that's going to be a smooth process. But by all means, we can try. And I do think one of the things that we've heard from vendors so far is basically the question, is this going to be like IRA? Like, are we going to have to approve every single person? Are we going to have to send you documentation on every single person? And when we tell them, you are going to have to sign an MOA with us, but once you get that in, you just have to approve the transmittals that those are actual people and actual accounts that this is going to, but you don't have to like send back bills and other information. They seem to be happy about that. So hopefully they will like this better than they like the process of answering an IERA call. Maybe? I don't really know.
Okay, well, thank you.
Sure.
I'm trying to get up my screen here.
Oh yeah, screen for tomorrow. All right. That is agenda for day 2, just so you know what all we're talking about tomorrow.
Yeah, and it could go, well, let's see, how many slides did we have today? Like 20? And there's about half of that. There's about 13, maybe a few more for tomorrow. So yeah, I would say, yeah, I would say we'll be good tomorrow.
Yeah. I have a couple more questions about the vendor MOAs. We will discuss a little bit more about this tomorrow, but I'm just going to answer your questions because we're not running out of time. Right. Sarah asked, would it be advised for us to contact our water vendors in advance to advocate for them to sign the MOA or to see if they're going to have issues? Let's make it a point to let you know when those MOAs go out. It doesn't make sense necessarily for you to contact them before they have the MOA in hand. But once they do, absolutely. If there's somebody in your neck of the woods that you think might be a problem that you want to contact and say, hey man, sign this. By all means, we would love your assistance.
Yeah.
Yes, you will need to hold the transmittals of the vendors who are not approved. There will be a way to do this. We're working on a way to notify you as soon as a new vendor is approved in our system so that you know to go back in and send that transmittal. And then what if vendors refuse to sign the MOA? That is nothing we can do about that. We cannot send money directly to the client, so that client cannot be served until we get the signed MOA from that vendor. And if they never do, we can never serve them. Can we put on claims when apps start coming back from clients? Elaine, I don't know what your question is.
I might have missed this piece, but I wanted to make sure that as we start getting applications in the door, that we can go ahead and put on a claim for a specific vendor versus waiting till all the MOAs are back. I understand that we can't submit a transmittal to a vendor till you get one because you guys can't pay on that till you get that back.
Yeah, that's a good question when we talk to Brad, because it's about the system won't let you create, I believe it's a claim until the water vendor exists in the system.
Because
sorry,
go ahead.
I was just going to say we should talk to Brad about exactly where that lies, because yes, you can go ahead and do whatever bits of that process you can do ahead of time. But I don't know exactly where that catch is, because I know we have the system flagged so that you cannot make any sort of a claim or a transmittal on something unless you have the, unless that vendor has an MOA. And I'm not sure exactly where that catch is, whether it's before claims or before transmittal. So we'll need to ask about that so that you know what to expect.
Okay, because most of our LIHWAP vendors have water too for our smaller areas, for our municipalities.
Yeah,
So
and
they're
they'll
gonna
have to
be in
sign
that.
both MOAs. They're
Mhm.
separate MOAs.
Yes.
Okay.
And
So,
that's because we had special vendor protection or consumer protections that needed to be written into the water one.
okay. I
But
just
we
don't
can-
want to have to redo an app a second time if we can get it put into the process the first time.
I hear that. Water vendors will be added to the claims tab of EAP Connect when they've been approved. Yes, they will be in there. I thought vendors weren't added until we had assigned MOA, so how do we enter claims and run and hold transmittals if we can't enter a claim until they're approved? And that is, like I said, that's a matter of just seeing exactly where in that process that flag is. You can run it for EAP and not for water, and then go back in and run it for water later if that is an issue.
So Emily, to clarify on, and I don't know, I don't know what the vendor management's going to look like for water, but for EAP, how it works is we don't have a vendor even entered into the database until we have an MOA. So if there is no MOA, then basically the LSP, the intake, is not even going to see that vendor available to them as an option. Now that there could be some weirdness with some of the municipals who, if they have like an EAP MOA in, but not a water MOA yet. So that's something for us to maybe consider, and we might need to, well, I mean, again, not knowing what exactly it's going to look like in EAP Connect, because right now we have each vendor associated with what type of utility they are. So I assume that on our end for the vendor management, we're going to have water as an option.
Yeah.
So I assume that's how that'll be taken care of. So disregard my rambling there.
Yeah. Let's have that conversation when we have Brad on that session at the end of the day tomorrow. To make sure that you all know exactly where that's going to catch and what your process will need to look like internally in order to process those additional water benefits. Ingrid, it looks like your hand is raised.
My question is this: what if somebody applies and they do the EAP and the water, but there is no MOA with the water company, and later on they sign it? Can the client later on get the benefit with the water?
Yes, so the client can't come back later and ask for benefits that they didn't get approved for at the time of application. But if the problem is the water vendor, as soon as that MOA is signed, you can go back in and send through the benefit that they've already been approved for.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I believe their benefit letter is gonna, we'll see how that rolls out, but it's possible that the client will know that they're approved for a benefit and that they can't get it because their water vendor isn't participating. And that, to me, is fine, because at the end of the day, that puts the responsibility on the water vendor to sign that MOA with us. So, yeah, and we'll try to make sure that we've been working on a process on our end to make sure that when a new MOA is signed, that anyone who is in the jurisdiction that that water vendor covers is sent an email that says, hey, this new water vendor exists in our system now. Anybody who has applied under that, please go catch them. Oh, I'm getting some questions in chat. Have you had many or a lot of vendors not sign or yet or decline? We haven't sent out those MOAs to the vendors yet because we needed to have our state plan approved before we could approve the vendor MOAs. They did go through legal. We have a couple changes to make. They should be going out relatively soon.
Yes, I got feedback from legal yesterday, and so I'll be making those changes and working with Emily, and we'll get them out in the next week or two. And tomorrow is also our discussion of in-depth the vendor MOA. I have not put up the day 2 agenda yet, have I?
You did, yes.
I did?
It's up.
Oh, you can see it. Okay, perfect. There you go. That'll be good for now. So.
And then I got a question where the town of Paoli bills are always due on the 5th. If that's not paid, then they automatically get disconnected, but they don't receive a new bill. It's just now known that their current bill is past due. So those clients are basically never going to be eligible, and that's correct. They need to receive a bill that has a disconnect amount or an arrearage amount. If they never receive a bill with that information on it, then they will never be able to participate in the program because we need to show an arrearage or an past due amount in order to include them.
It's interesting.
Yep. Yeah. And I know some of those rules, like I said, they seem harsh and they seem difficult on the client end, but we've got to keep it as simple as possible. And we're trying to give you those borders for keeping it simple, because then you can blame us. And that should be able to help. You know, we have pretty strict guidelines on this. There's a hard yes or no. We want to try to keep it clean and simple, given that it's a new program being laid on top of an existing program, and that in and of itself is complex. All right. It looks like some of our questions have died down. They'll be eligible if they get disconnected. Yeah, that is true, but if they have already applied, they can't submit the new disconnect bill. So if they already have been disconnected in the past, they will be eligible. All right. Wording. I'm writing down a new note, but Ashley, go ahead and take it away if there's anything else.
Yeah, I don't think I've got too much more for today. Like I said, here's the kind of the agenda for tomorrow. A lot of what we will be talking about tomorrow, we hit on in one way or another today, but we're gonna dig in a little more deeply tomorrow. Vendor MOA, I think, is one part that is, something that you'll want to, really know about, and we'll have the consumer protections in there that are very specific, that, I literally copied and pasted them in there so that you have those ready and available to you. Let's see. And then, like I said, yeah, think of questions as you are kind of going through things tonight, as you unwind. Any questions you have, bring them with you tomorrow. And, if we get done a little early from the morning session, we can have our break a little early and then, go into the Q&A a little early as well. And yeah, Brad won't come on until 1, so that part will have to stay at 1 o'clock no matter what. But like I said, yeah, he'll come on at 1 o'clock and really discuss the key differences in the system between water and LIHWAP, and what to expect when you get in there.
I have a new question.
Okay.
It says in the first couple of slides, it says that the funding is through 2 different sources. Is that broken up in EAP Connect, or will the budget be entered in a 2-part due to where the sources are from? So yes, I believe that both different sources will be available in EAP Connect, but what we're going to do, similar to EAP this year, is we are going to spend down all of the ARPA funds. So everything is going to go through ARPA, and then we're going to, when you get to the end of those ARPA funds, we're going to close that out. We're going to open you up the current year, the appropriations bill funds, and then you'll spend that down. So, so both funding sources will be available in there, but we're going to spend all of one down before opening the other one.
And yeah, we'll go more into that part of the utilities and rent. I may have Emily be the one to talk more about that and cover kind of the basics, and then she can get into more in about that. But I will say the good part about that is OCS was interested in how we presented what we had planned to do and asked if we could be kind of like a model to report back to them in a couple months on how we're doing to see how it goes. So that was a positive and made us feel like we were taking steps in the right direction, even though it was a little frustrating at first getting the feedback that we had to change something in a very short period of time, 7 business days, I think it was, get that turned around and back out the door. So, but we are good to go now. So all good now. But yeah, I think that's all I've got for today, is unless there's any questions for anyone, feel free to send questions. If you have something you don't feel comfortable asking in front of the group, send that my way. If not, we will see you again tomorrow morning, same place at 9 o'clock.
Thanks for your GIF, Elaine. That is exactly what's happening right now. It says, I can do it. Not sure just yet, not sure how just yet, but I can do it. That's, you know, we're building this as we're flying it. And we appreciate your questions and your openness to the changes that we're making along the way.
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
All
we
right.
will see you tomorrow.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.